Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Today we are going to deal with the first part of the novel as a kind of analytical study. So we are going to analyze this novel. We are going to start with the first part. So today's topic, analysis of Robinson Crusoe Part 1. Let's start to ask some questions about the previous lecture. You remember the topic for the previous lecture. We have realism and humanity in Robinson Crusoe. Let me ask you this. Tell me the definition of a realistic novel. What's a realistic novel? If I ask you to define realistic novel, tell me the definition of realistic novel. Who can tell me a good definition for realistic novel? We can say, yes, it's the novel that portrays the real aspects of everyday life of characters. It's similar to real human experience. So we can say one of these definitions we have said in the lecture. We can say it's a low life representation of the experience of real characters. Another question, what are the effects of realistic novel on the readers? What are the effects or reflections? What are the reflections or effects of realistic novel on the readers? We have some effects of Robinson Crusoe, for example, on the readers, and this is a general aspect of realistic novel. So we have the first one, the first effect, discovering humanity. Another one, yes, that's right, finding the truth of ideas and concepts. Another one, imitating the good experience that exists in the novel. So we can imitate the experience of some characters in the novel. So again, you can choose one of these. If I ask you, what are the effects of a realistic novel on the readers, you can choose 1, 2, 3. Two of them are enough. Discovering humanity, finding the truth of ideas, or you can choose the third one, imitating real experience. Robinson Crusoe is a realistic novel that imitates, complete this. Robinson Crusoe is a realistic novel that imitates high life or low life experience. It's an imitation of high life or low life. Which one of these? That's right. So it's an imitation of low life experience. Another question, Crusoe gives more description to his tools than his real adventures. This is realistic feature or unrealistic feature? Again, Crusoe gives more description to his tools than his real adventures. This is a realistic feature or this is unrealistic feature? Which one of these? Yes, unrealistic feature. Giving some characters specific names is considered which one of these? Realistic or unrealistic? To give characters realistic names from the or specific names. We have two options, realistic feature or unrealistic feature. That's right, realistic feature. Now let's start with today's lecture. We are going to analyze the first part of Robinson Crusoe. There are three important periods in Robinson Crusoe. The original edition of the novel is not divided into parts or chapters, so we can't see any division throughout the original copy or the original edition of this novel. It's one part, therefore it's very long and should be divided in order to be analyzed. The three parts or periods are his life and adventures before reaching the isolated island. So we have before reaching the isolated island. This is the first part. The second part, we have his life and adventures on the island. The third one, managing, and we have leaving the island to his home, arranging his leave, and after reaching his home. Let's start with the first part. In this part, the narrator Robinson Crusoe introduces some information about his life and his family. He tries to follow and fulfill his dream of sailing to other places and undertaking new experiences. So he has something in his individualism. He wants to achieve his individualism. He wants to have some adventures in his life, so he tries to follow and fulfill his dream of sailing to other places and undertaking a new experience. He is ambitious and adventure seeker. So he is adventurous. He never stops thinking of achieving his dream. He never stops dreaming to go on the sea. So we can see that he follows his dream and he achieves his dream at the end. We can see that later. He never stops thinking of achieving his dream. Crusoe is a young man who wants to reveal the reality of his humanity. He wants to find out the secrets of life. He no more believes in life without adventure. So this is very important. He no more believes in life without adventure. He keeps looking for new ideas. He plans to leave England. So he has a plan to leave England. From the beginning of the novel, it appears that Crusoe doesn't accept his current situation. He doesn't accept his current situation. He wants to change his life and he wants to change all his ideas. He says, I was born in the year 1632 in the city of York, of a good family though not of that country. Again, he says, I was born in the year 1632 in the city of York. This is a quotation from the beginning of the novel. Of a good family, though not of that country, my father being a foreigner of Bremen, who settled first at Hull. He got good estate by merchandise and leaving off his trade, lived afterwards at York, from whence he had married my mother, whose relations were named Robinson, a very good family in that country. Robinson Crusoe is named after the name of his mother's relations. So Robinson Crusoe has gotten his name from the relatives or from his mother's relations or relatives. Crusoe considers himself as a foreigner. His family name is given after his mother's family name. Their origin is German. It appears that there is a social control over the lives of people in England. We can see social restrictions even at the level of their names. He plans to travel and see the other sides of life elsewhere. He has two elder brothers. One of them is killed at a battle and he doesn't know anything about the other. So again, his family. He plans to travel and see other sides of life elsewhere. He has two elder brothers. So he is what? The youngest or the oldest? He is the youngest. So again, he has two elder brothers. One of them is killed at a battle and he doesn't know anything about the other. His father and mother don't want him to leave England since he is the youngest son for them. His father advises him not to leave and accept his situation with the middle class. He tells him that, his father tells him that the middle class situation is a bliss from God. So, according to his father, we can see accepting the position in the middle class is a bliss from God. So it's very good for a human being to be in the middle class. This is according to his father. Crusoe shows that as a sincere narrator of the real events that have happened to him, he is faithful and doesn't change the facts about things to appear as a young man without mistakes. Crusoe is not interested to appear as a great hero or a great man. He shows us his mistakes and he confesses sometimes that he is mistaken. His father, we can see this quotation, his father, told me that mine was the middle state, or what might be called the upper station of low life. So the level of his family is the upper state of the low life, which he had found by long experience was the best state in the world, the most suited to human happiness and not exposed to the miseries and hardships, the labor and suffering of the mechanic part of mankind, and not embarrassed with the pride, luxury, ambition, and envy of the upper part of mankind. So we have a good state of the middle class, not the envy and the pride and luxury ambition of the upper class, and not the miseries and hardships, predicaments and difficulty of life for the poor. So the middle class is the best position for living happily. His father asks him to be satisfied with his life because his middle class state is the best, and we can see he says, I was sincerely affected with this discourse. So we can see that Robinson Crusoe is affected by this statement by his father. He says, I was sincerely affected with this discourse, and indeed who could be otherwise? After justification of this state from his father, he becomes satisfied and he becomes convinced. Who could be otherwise? And I resolved, this is a decision by Crusoe, I resolved not to think of going abroad anymore, but to settle at home, to stay at home, according to my father's desire. So according to this quotation, Crusoe decides not to leave England or to leave his family in the future. We will see that later, whether he changes that or not. After 1 year, Crusoe changes his attitude. So only after 1 year, he changes his attitude. Crusoe says, I would be satisfied with nothing but going to the sea. Again, I would be satisfied with nothing but going to sea. So he is what? Determined to sail to the sea, and he is against the idea of being in the middle class or getting satisfied and living in such terrible life. According to him, he leaves home without God's blessing or his father's approval. So he was against his social condition. He doesn't think of the following consequences. He sails with a companion from Hull to London, September the 1st, 1651. So we can see that Crusoe changes his ideas all the time. This is the first time for Crusoe at sea. He is frightened when the wind blows and the storm begins. After sailing, there is a storm. Crusoe is frightened. He thinks that he has made a great mistake. So when he faces terrible situation, he also changes his mind and he regrets his opinion or his decision or his previous settlement. He thinks that he has made a great mistake when he sails to the sea. He prays for God. He decides not to go to the sea again if his God saves him this time. Again, he decides another decision made by Crusoe. He decides not to go to the sea again if his God saves him this time. So he has another decision, and we will see whether he changes or not. The storm clears. We can see the storm clears or ends. Crusoe says, I entirely forgot the vows and promises that I made in my distress. He forgets his promises and he changes his mind again. Crusoe changes his opinion again and wants to sail for another time. The master of the ship advises Crusoe. He says, you ought never to go to the sea anymore. You ought to take this for a plain and visible token or evidence that you are not be a sailor. He continues, heaven has given you of what you are to expect if you persist. If you continue to sail, you will face difficulties all over your sailing, all over your adventures. This is the advice from another person, not his father now, from the captain or the master of the ship. He continues, what had I done? The captain, what had I done? Says he, that such an unhappy wretch should come into my ship. He means Crusoe. I wouldn't set my foot in the same ship with thee again for £1,000. The captain addresses Crusoe. He tells him that if you give me £1,000, I will not sail with you again, since you are wretched and unlucky, misfortunate. So Crusoe is unlucky and he brings bad luck to the master of the ship. Sailing to the coast of Africa. After that, after this experience with the captain, we can see that he doesn't take his advice into his consideration. After his first adventure at sea, Crusoe says, I remained some time. So he stays without sailing for some time, uncertain what measures to take and what course of life to lead. He becomes uncertain about his situation. He changes his opinion all the time. He changes his decision all the time. So he becomes uncertain about his situation. He doesn't accept the advice even from the experienced master of the ship. He sails to the coast of Africa again. He sails to the sea and he sails now to Africa. The captain advises him to take some goods as a kind of a trade. He takes around £40 in such toys and trifles. He takes some objects in order to trade in Africa. His voyage to the coast of Africa is successful. He brings gold dust to London, which achieves him a lot of money. Taking some trifles and some objects to Africa, then going back to England with a lot of gold dust. We have gold dust. Also, the captain gives him a competent knowledge of the mathematics and the rules of navigation. So we have two benefits of this voyage to Africa, or to the coast of Africa. The first one, he brings a lot of gold dust. So he achieves financial success. The other one, we have some information about sailing. He gets competent knowledge of mathematics and the rules of navigation. So he becomes a good sailor. Two benefits of his voyage to the coast of Africa again: bringing gold dust, educating himself in mathematics and navigation to become a good sailor. He says, "This voyage made me both a sailor and a merchant, for I brought home 5 pounds 9 ounces of gold dust for my adventure, which yielded me in London at my return almost 300 pounds. Remember, again, he takes with him around 40 pounds, and he takes trifles. Then he comes back with 300 pounds. Therefore, he decides to go back again to the coast of Africa. His companion captain died. After that, the captain of this ship died after coming to England. The captain died. He leaves 200 pounds with his companion's widow. With the widow of this captain, he keeps, or he leaves 200 pounds with her. He takes only 100 pounds. In his way, some Turkish pirates chase the ship. Crusoe says, "Our ship being disabled and 3 of our men killed and 8 wounded, we were obliged to yield and were carried all prisoners into Sally." So we have again two achievements of his voyage to the coast of Africa. The first one, he becomes a good sailor. The second one, he becomes a merchant. Crusoe becomes a slave to the captain of the ship, who lives in Sali, Morocco. This is in North Africa. After 2 years of slavery, Crusoe escapes after arranging the fishing boat of his master with a lot of supplies. So he leaves and runs away from the captivity of his master, the captain of the pirates. There are 2 other servants with him. He forces one of them to go back to the shore and keeps the young boy, who is called Kasuri. Kasuri promises to be faithful to Crusoe. Crusoe says, "Kasuri, if you will be faithful to me, I'll make you a great man. But if you will not stroke your face to be true to me, I must throw you into the sea again." So we can see the relationship between the slave and the master. We have a kind of superior relationship between Crusoe and Kasuri. The boy smiled in my face and spoke so innocently that I couldn't distrust him. So Kasuri is innocent. He is loyal to his master and swore to be faithful to me and go all over the world with me. So again, he is loyal and he keeps his promise to Crusoe. Crusoe sails along the coast because he hasn't navigation instruments. They want drinking water. In their way, they are in need for drinking water. He asks Kosori to bring some water from the near shore. Kosori goes to the shore and brings some water. There are lions on the shore. Crusoe and Kosori kill one of these lions and take its skin. So again, we have Kosori and the experience of bringing some water to the boat, and their experience and adventure with the lions, and they skinned one of these lions. After some weeks, they see a Portuguese ship. Crusoe can't understand the language of the captain, but there is a Scottish sailor who speaks English. The captain takes them on board with their goods. Crusoe sells his boat skins of animals and the boat for the generous Portuguese captain. He also sells Kosori. You remember the servant, Kosori. Crusoe decides to keep him as his loyal servant, but later he sells him to the captain. He also sells Kosori after the captain says that he will let him free after 10 years if he becomes Christian. So there is a condition for releasing Kosori. In order to get his freedom, Kosori has to be Christian. There is a kind of religious power appears in this situation where Kosori can get his freedom if he follows their religion, Christianity. He tells Crusoe that the ship is headed for Brazil and he wants to take no money for his ride. They reach Brazil after 22 days. Crusoe starts sugar plantation. He thinks of getting his money from England to enlarge his plantation. Then he realizes that he can achieve this kind of life in England. After reaching Brazil, he becomes a kind of farmer or a kind of planter. He is not satisfied with this situation and he addresses himself that he can achieve this in his home England, so there is no use to be in Brazil in order to be planter. He is not satisfied with this experience. He is not satisfied with such situation. He discovers that he was mistaken when he sold Kosori because he needs many workers to help him in his sugar plantation. He begins to grow tobacco. Therefore, he spends a lot of his wealth to get 2 servants. This makes him think of going to Africa and buy slaves and bring them to Brazil. So we have a kind of trade or slavery in this context. Some planters encourage him to sail and bring slaves for them. He carries on the ship beads, bits of glass, shells and other trifles, especially little looking glasses, knives, scissors, hatchets and the like. So he has some objects with him in order to trade in Africa, so to exchange them with the slaves. There is a clear evidence of slavery and superior attitude towards other people in Africa and other places. Crusoe sails to Africa on September the 1st, 1659, which is the same day in which he sailed from Hull to London. In their way, he faces destructive storm. Defoe describes their situation during the storm in detail. We have a lot of description for the storm. For example, he says that as the rage of the wind was still great, though rather less than at first, we couldn't much as hope to have the ship hold many minutes without breaking into pieces. We can see the ship is going to break into pieces unless the winds by a kind of miracle should turn immediately about. In a word, we sat looking upon one another and expecting death every moment. So he expects death every moment. There were 11 men on the ship. After the destruction of their ship, he never saw them afterwards or any sign of them except 3 of their hats, only hats, 1 cap and 2 shoes that were not fellows. He doesn't see any one of these sailors after the storm. Crusoe is the only survivor. He doesn't know where he is, in which country. He later finds out that he is on an isolated island. So we are going to start with his experience on the island for the next part. Thank you so much.